Now, though, to discuss the significance of the Cornwall G7 summit and Australia's role, I'm joined now by Liberal Senator Eric Abetz. Senator, thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure.
Now, can I start with the subject of the Biloela family? This is like no other case we've known about, certainly not publicly known about. Surely there's a fix. There's the government going half the way and the family taking, I guess, going half the way and accepting what might come to them temporarily. Is that the fix?
I'm not aware of all the details that will be informing the minister's decision, but look, there are some fundamental principles at stake here. Firstly, all the way up through to the High Court, the couple have been determined not to be refugees. They do not invite protection of refugee status given their circumstances, and that's now been tested all the way through to the High Court. We know how they arrived by engaging criminals to advance their cause. My view has always been that our refugee intake should be generous. It is. That the support we give refugees should be generous, and it is. And that this refugee support should be provided to those who are most in need. And having visited some refugee camps in Asia, can I say that those that have been in places that don't have sanitation, carved out of the hillside in West Thailand, and they've been there for 10, 15 years, my heart goes out to them a lot more so than those that have never set foot in a refugee camp and engaged criminals to support their campaign to get to the front of the queue and then are found not to have refugee status.
Okay, jumping the queue is not something...
Every one of those, Chris?
I understand what you're saying. But what about two kids who are Australian citizens and we send them back to a country they've never, ever been to? It seems so odd.
And that is where, having dealt with the principle, you've got to deal with the individual cases and try to be as humanitarian as possible. And I'm not aware of all the circumstances that will be informing the minister's decision, because there will be a lot of privacy issues surrounding this as well. But the couple were told at the very beginning that they would not be allowed to settle in Australia.
Sure.
And then by virtue of having children, this now looks as though it may be reconsidered. But not being clothed with all the information, it's hard to make a decision here on TV. But that said, the principle and the protection of our refugee regime has to be number one, because what we want to do is support those most in need, not those with the money to pay criminal people smugglers.
Sure. Let's talk about the G7. I got the feeling that the Prime Minister, who wasn't really part of the G7, only an onlooker, a guest, actually drove some of the issues at the summit.
I think Australia's done exceptionally well at the G7. The Prime Minister has performed exceptionally well. The naysayers were saying that he wasn't going to get audiences with the President, Prime Minister, etc. Well, it all came together with an exceptional trilateral meeting of the UK, US and Australia, and a coming together of the freedom-loving countries of the world to push back on this belligerent dictatorship that the Chinese people are currently suffering under. I've been on this bandwagon now for a number of years, and I'm absolutely delighted to see that the G7 is getting onto that which the Interparliamentary Alliance on China has been advocating for over 12 months, that we need to push back on this regime, and looks as though the freedom-loving countries of the world are going to do that. And might I add, the Australian Prime Minister had genuine input into that, especially with his world-leading stance in relation to the investigation of COVID-19, which caused us a lot of backlash. But I think the rest of the world now are saying the leadership of Prime Minister Morrison and the Australian government was what the world needed at the time. And now, as more information's coming out of Wuhan, Chris, I think people will be saying how very wise was Scott Morrison and the Australian government in pushing for a full investigation, and now clearly we need a further investigation, given that bats have been shown to have been in the laboratory in Wuhan, something which the belligerent dictatorship so vehemently denied at first.
Yeah, a major development it is. However, you've got WHO saying we want to get back to China to work out and gain more information about the origins of the virus. We were thrashed by China and punished by China for firstly coming out asking for an investigation. Was it wise for the Prime Minister to get on the front foot about this again at the G7?
Principle is principle, and the Prime Minister's stance on this has been exceptionally good, and all Australians ought to be proud of him, because the last thing you want to do to a bully is to give in or say, oh, they might bully us, therefore we won't stand on principle. The Prime Minister's taken the right decision, Australia's taken the right decision. Has there been a backlash? Yes, but I think the Australian people have been willing to say we will always stand on the side of principle, on the side of freedom. And what do you think the 1 million Uyghurs that, as we are speaking, are suffering in concentration camps, those house Christians, Falun Gong, the Hong Kongers who are supporting democracy, all those people, they deserve the support of the Australian government in their plight, and it is this same belligerent dictatorship that tried to cover up COVID-19.
Yep.
This is a regime that has a lot to answer for, and by being at the forefront of the world movement for a full investigation, we're also giving heart and support to those that are fighting against this belligerent dictatorship internally.
Senator Eric Abetz, thank you for your time.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Chris.